The conference hall stretched wider than any structure humans had ever built. Ambassador Chen stood at the entrance, her escort of 3 diplomats behind her, and tried not to show her nervousness. They had traveled 6 months through folded space to reach the Galactic Concordat's central hub, and now the moment had arrived. The aliens barely looked up when the humans entered. Chen had expected many things. She expected hostility, perhaps. Questions, certainly. Maybe even weapons pointed at Earth's first representatives to the greater galaxy. What she had not expected was indifference. A tall being with 4 arms gestured lazily toward empty seats near the back of the chamber. Its translator device hummed. "You may observe. The current session discusses trade routes through the Velos sector. We're here to establish diplomatic relations," Chen said, keeping her voice steady. "Humanity wishes to join the Concordat. Yes. Yes. Fill out the forms at Station 7. You will be processed." The alien returned to its conversation with a slug-like creature that smelled of copper. Chen felt her jaw tighten, but she walked to Station 7. The holographic interface took 3 hours to complete, asking questions about human biology, technology level, and territorial claims. When she reached the final section, her heart sank. "Please list all star systems under your species control." She entered Earth's solar system. Then, the 3 small colonies humanity had managed to establish on nearby worlds. 5 systems total. The interface paused. Then it displayed a galactic map. The galaxy blazed with colors. Every section, every arm, every cluster glowed with territorial markers. Thousands of species, millions of worlds, all claimed and settled over the past 50,000 years. The small bubble around Earth looked like a single grain of sand on an infinite beach. "Your territorial claims have been registered," the interface announced. "Please note, all listed systems fall within unclaimed space and are approved. However, they represent 0.0000003% of available galactic territory." A new being approached Chen's station. This one looked almost human, except for the silver skin and eyes that had no pupils. It smiled, and the expression seemed genuine. "Ah, humans, we heard rumors of your arrival. I am Kelvin of the Prax. Welcome to the Concordat. Though I fear you have arrived at an unfortunate time." "What do you mean?" Chen asked. Kelvin gestured to the map. "There is nothing left. The galaxy was divided 12,000 years ago, during the Great Peace. Every habitable world, every resource-rich system, every comfortable corner of space has been claimed. Your 5 systems are lovely, I am sure, but you will find expansion difficult." "Surely there must be room somewhere," said Martinez, one of Chen's fellow diplomats. "The galaxy has 400 billion stars." "Indeed, but only a fraction are suitable." Kelvin manipulated the interface, and the map changed. Most of the glowing territories dimmed, leaving scattered pockets of darkness. "These are the rejection zones. We could offer you settlement rights there, but I would not advise it." Chen studied the dark regions. They clustered in strange places. Some hugged too close to the galactic core. Others drifted in the void between spiral arms. Several wrapped around black holes or neutron stars. "Why are they rejected?" she asked. "Because they kill everything that tries to live there," Kelvin said simply. "Too much radiation. Not enough light. Gravity that tears ships apart. Temperatures that freeze oxygen solid or boil lead. Every species tried to expand into these zones during the first 1,000 years of the Concordat. Every species failed. We lost millions of lives, learning which parts of the galaxy are fit for civilization." Chen looked at the dark spaces on the map. She thought about Earth's history. Humans living in deserts where water was rare. Humans building cities in frozen tundra. Humans diving to ocean depths and climbing to mountain peaks. Humans surviving where survival seemed impossible. "We'll take them," she said. Kelvin blinked. I do not think you understand. These are not merely difficult environments. They are death zones. We understand, Chen replied. The Prax diplomat stared at her for a long moment. Then, he made a sound that the translator interpreted as a sigh. Very well. It is your funeral, as I believe your species says, but the Concordat requires proof of successful settlement before granting permanent territorial rights. You must establish viable colonies within 50 standard years. Agreed. The paperwork took another 6 hours. When Chen finally returned to the human ship in orbit, her team gathered in the common room. They looked exhausted. They think we're fools, Martinez said, pulling up the territorial maps on the ship's display. Look at these places. This system has a neutron star that pulses radiation every 11 seconds. This rogue planet is floating in deep space, with no sun at all. This one is inside a stellar nursery, where new stars are forming. We'll be cooked alive. They think we're fools because they've never had to be anything else, Chen said. She zoomed in on Earth, visible as a tiny blue dot. Our ancestors survived ice ages. They crossed oceans in wooden boats. They lived in places where the air was too thin to breathe, and the sun never set for months. We're the species that looked at every impossible place on our planet and said, let's try anyway. That was Earth, said Kim, the team scientist. These places are worse. Then we'll adapt. We always do. Chen highlighted one of the dark zones, a cluster of systems near a black hole. We start here. Close enough to the Concordat to prove our point. Far enough that they'll leave us alone. We'll need engineers, lots of them, and volunteers who understand this. Might not work. You really think we can do this? Martinez asked. Chen smiled. They looked at these places and saw death. I look at them and see potential. No one watching over our shoulders. No rules written by species that have forgotten what it means to struggle. Just us and the universe. Figuring it out together, she sent the message to Earth that night. It would take 3 months to arrive. Another 3 for the response. But Chen already knew what it would say. Humanity had been handed the leftovers, the scraps no one else wanted. And they would turn those scraps into something the galaxy had never seen. Because that was what humans did best. The warning sirens screamed through the colony, but Sarah Torres had heard them so many times they barely registered anymore. She grabbed her pressure suit from the hook and was sealed inside it within 40 seconds. Outside the habitat dome, the neutron star's radiation pulse was coming. 11 seconds to pulse, the computer announced calmly. Sarah dropped into the radiation shelter, a lead-lined chamber buried 30 meters below the surface. 15 other colonists were already there, checking equipment and making jokes. This happened every 11 seconds. They had built their entire lives around it. The pulse hit. Even through all the shielding, the radiation counters clicked madly. Sarah counted in her head. 1, 2, 3. At 4 seconds, the clicking began to fade. At 7, it stopped. At 11, the all clear sounded. Another one survived, said Marcus, grinning. He was a teenager. Born on this world. He had never known anything else. That's 47 million pulses since I was born. I counted. Sarah laughed. Don't you have school? Virtual classes during pulse cycles. I'm technically in math class right now. He showed her his wrist display, where equations floated next to his vital signs. They climbed back up to the main habitat. Through the transparent dome, the neutron star blazed like an angry eye. It was beautiful, in a terrible way. Sarah had been afraid of it during her first year here. Now it was just part of home. The colony on Racton 4, as humans called it, had been established 23 years ago. It was one of the first settlements in the rejection zones. Everyone said it would fail within months. The neutron star's radiation would kill them. The gravity fluctuations would tear their structures apart. The lack of stable sunlight would make growing food impossible. They had been wrong about all of it. The radiation shelters worked. Humans had been building bunkers against nuclear weapons for centuries. The same principles applied here, just faster. Automated systems monitored the pulses and gave warnings. Life continued, in the brief windows between radiation bursts. The gravity had been harder. The first 3 habitats collapsed when tidal forces stretched and compressed them. But human engineers were stubborn. They built flexible structures that could bend. They used materials that absorbed stress instead of breaking. By the 3rd year, they had habitats that could last decades. As for food, they grew it underground in vast caverns lit by artificial suns. Mushrooms and algae thrived in the controlled environment. Fish tanks provided protein. It was not easy, but it worked. Sarah walked to the observation deck where Director Okonkwo was waiting. He was watching a ship descend through the thin atmosphere. Not a human ship. Visitors, he said. Prax delegation. They've sent observers every 5 years like clockwork, always expecting to find our bones. The alien shuttle landed near the main habitat. 3 Prax emerged, their silver skin gleaming in the neutron star's harsh light. They wore heavy radiation suits, much bulkier than the human versions. Sarah and Okonkwo met them at the airlock. "Welcome to Racton 4, Okonkwo said. "Though, I believe you call it Death's Door in your language." The lead Prax, who introduced himself as Maureen, looked around the habitat with obvious surprise. "You have expanded since our last visit." The database showed 300 residents. "I am now reading over 2,000 life signs. 2,417. As of this morning," Sarah said proudly. "We had 6 births last week." "Births," Morin repeated. "Of course." The Prax exchanged glances. Their translators hummed with untranslated conversation. Finally, Morin spoke again. "May we see your facilities? The Concordat wishes to verify your settlement meets the minimum standards for territorial recognition." Morin spoke again. "May we see your 5-second?" They toured the colony for 6 hours. Okonkwo showed them the underground farms, the water recycling systems that achieved 98% efficiency, the schools where children learned physics and history between radiation pulses. He showed them the expansion tunnels being dug for the next 1,000 residents. Sarah noticed Morin's reactions shifting from skepticism to confusion, to something that might have been respect. In the manufacturing sector, they found a group of engineers building something that looked like a massive cage made of electromagnetic coils. "What is this?" Morin asked. "Radiation collector," explained the chief engineer, a woman named Halima. "The neutron star throws out incredible energy. We're learning to capture it. If this prototype works, we'll have enough power to run 10 colonies this size." "You are using the radiation as a resource," Morin said slowly. "Not merely surviving it. Why waste it?" Halima shrugged. "It's free energy, just hard to harvest." The tour ended at the Memorial Garden, a quiet space with plants from Earth growing under carefully controlled conditions. Names were engraved on a stone wall. 143 names. "The ones who didn't make it," Okonkwo said quietly. "The first 5 years were brutal. We lost people to radiation sickness before we perfected the shelters. We lost people to equipment failures, to accidents, to the simple stress of living here. Every name on this wall is someone who died so the rest of us could figure out how to survive." Morin studied the wall for a long time. "We never built memorials in the rejection zones. We simply left when our people began dying." "Different philosophy," Okonkwo replied. "We don't leave our dead behind. We honor them and learn from what killed them. Then we make sure it doesn't kill anyone else." As the Prax prepared to depart, Morin turned to Okonkwo. "I must inform the Concordat that Racton 4 exceeds all requirements for territorial recognition. You have achieved something remarkable here. We've achieved something necessary," Okonkwo corrected. "This is just the beginning." After the aliens left, Sarah stood on the observation deck, and watched their ship vanish into the black. Through the transparent dome, she could see other habitats scattered across the rocky landscape, each one glowing with light and life. In the distance, construction drones worked on the next expansion. Marcus joined her, still wearing his school uniform. "Teacher," said the Prax, seemed scared of us. "Why?" Sarah thought about it. "Because we did something they thought was impossible. And if we can do this, what else might we do?" The warning sirens began again. 11 seconds to the next pulse. Sarah and Marcus walked calmly to the shelter. Just another day on a world the galaxy had declared uninhabitable. Across the rejection zones, 43 other human colonies were having similar days, thriving where thriving should have been impossible, growing where nothing should grow, building futures in the places others had abandoned. The galaxy was starting to notice. The emergency session of the Galactic Concordat had been called without warning. Ambassador Chen, now 78 years old, and head of humanity's diplomatic corps, arrived to find the chamber in chaos. Delegates shouted at each other in a dozen languages while translators struggled to keep up. Chen took her seat in the human section. They had better seats now, closer to the center. 80 years of successful colonization had earned humanity that much. The Concordat director, a massive being called Thren whose species resembled six-legged bears, slammed its appendage on the podium. The sound echoed like thunder. "Order! We must have order!" Thren's translator boomed. "The threat is real. The Devourers have entered our galaxy." A holographic display materialized above the chamber. It showed the galaxy's edge, where something was moving. The image zoomed in, revealing ships, thousands of them, spreading like a plague across the outer spiral arm. "They have already consumed 12 systems," Thren continued. 3 Concordat species have lost colony worlds. The Devourers do not communicate. They do not negotiate. They simply take everything and move on. "What do we know about them?" called out a delegate from the Vryn species. "Very little. They appeared from dark space between galaxies. Their technology is advanced. Our fleets have engaged them twice. We lost both battles." Murmurs of fear rippled through the chamber. The Concordat had not fought a war in 8,000 years. Peace had made them comfortable, but not prepared. "We must mobilize the defense fleets," said Morin, the Prax delegate Chen remembered from years ago. "Establish a defensive line across the outer rim." "The logistics are impossible," replied a Sith delegate, its snake-like body coiled around its platform. "Our supply lines cannot reach that far. The territories between our worlds and the threat are uninhabited. We would need to establish bases in the rejection zones to maintain any prolonged defense." Silence fell over the chamber. Everyone understood what that meant. Chen stood up. "Humanity can help with that." All eyes turned to her. "The rejection zones are not uninhabited anymore," she continued. "We have 147 colonies in those regions. We have mapped safe routes through areas you consider impassable. We have infrastructure, supply depots, and repair facilities in places you abandoned centuries ago." Thren leaned forward. "You are saying humans can provide supply lines through the death zones?" Thren. "Miles ERC. Miles ERC. Miles ERC. Miles ERC. We're saying we already have them. We've been building this network for 80 years. We can move ships and supplies through regions that would take your fleets months to cross. We can do it in weeks." The chamber erupted in discussion. Some delegates looked hopeful. Others seemed suspicious. "What does humanity want in exchange?" asked the Vryn delegate bluntly. Chen had been expecting this. "Full voting rights in the Concordat Council, recognition of all our territorial claims, and access to your medical technology database. Our colonies in high radiation zones have unique health challenges." "That is a high price," Thren said. "And you're facing extinction," Chen replied simply. "The Devourers won't stop at the outer rim. They'll come for all of us. You need us." Thren looked around the chamber, seeing the fear in every delegate's face. Finally, it nodded. The council will vote. But first, you must prove your claims. Show us these routes. Show us your infrastructure. 2 weeks later, a Concordat fleet of 30 ships followed a human guide vessel into the rejection zones. Admiral Keiko Yamada commanded the guide ship, a vessel specifically designed for extreme environments. Entering the Corven Void, Yamada announced over the shared communications channel. All ships maintain formation. We'll be in darkness for 3 days. The Void was a region of space between spiral arms where no stars existed for 10,000 light-years. Most species refused to travel through it. The psychological impact of absolute darkness drove crews mad. Navigation was nearly impossible, but humans had put way stations there. Every 12 hours of travel, a small human outpost appeared, floating in the endless black. Each one had fuel, supplies, and most importantly, light. The alien crews relaxed when they saw those stations. Tiny points of civilization in the emptiness. How do your people survive here? Asked Commander Zelith, leader of the Concordat fleet. He was Sith, his species preferring warm jungle worlds. There is nothing. There's peace and quiet, Yamada replied. Some humans like that. The family running Waystation 7 has been there for 20 years. They say it's peaceful. On the 3rd day, they emerged from the void near a rogue planet. This world had no sun, drifting alone through space. Its surface was frozen. Nitrogen, but humans had built a colony deep in its core, using geothermal heat from the planet's formation. Refueling station here, Yamada announced. We can resupply and let your crews rest. Gravity is heavy, so be careful. The alien crews were amazed. The humans had carved out a small city inside the planet. Thousands of people lived here, mining ice and rare elements. They had gardens, schools, even a theater. Children played in the corridors, laughing. This is impossible, Zelith said, watching human children play in what should have been a dead world. How can they be happy here? Yamada smiled. They don't know it's supposed to be impossible. To them, it's just home. The journey continued. Through a stellar nursery where new stars were being born, radiation so intense it should have killed everyone. But humans had shields and rotated their exposure times. Through the gravity well of a black hole, where space-time itself bent and twisted. But humans had mapped the safe paths and knew exactly how to navigate. At each location, there were human colonies or stations. Not large, but present. Alive. Thriving. By the time they reached the outer rim, Zelith and his commanders were convinced. They had traveled in 20 days through regions that should have taken 4 months. They had resupplied at stations that shouldn't exist. They had seen humans living in places that defied reason. Your species is either the bravest or the craziest in the galaxy, Zelith told Yamada as they prepared to engage the Devourers. Maybe both, Yamada replied. But we're here, and we're ready to fight. The first battle using human supply lines was a tactical victory. Concordat ships could strike fast and retreat to human stations for repairs and resupply. The Devourers, accustomed to fighting opponents who could not operate in harsh environments, found themselves confused. When the fleet returned to Concordat space, the Council voted. Humanity received full membership, equal to any other species. Their territorial claims were recognized without question. The medical database was opened. But more than that, the galaxy had learned something important. The places they feared, the regions they had abandoned, were not as empty as they thought. Humans had been there all along, quietly building, preparing, surviving. And now, when the galaxy needed those impossible places most, humanity was ready to share them. Chen watched the vote tally appear on the display. Unanimous approval. She thought about all those years ago, when they had been offered the scraps, the leftovers no one wanted. Those scraps had become the most valuable real estate in the galaxy. We did it, said Martinez, now her chief aide. gray-haired and proud. No, Chen replied, looking at the map of human colonies scattered through the rejection zones. We're just getting started. The Devourers broke through the outer defensive line on a Tuesday. By Friday, 17 more colony worlds had gone silent. The Concordat was losing, and everyone knew it. General James Cortez stood in the command center on Racton 4, now transformed into a military hub. The old colony had grown into a city of 50,000, and its strategic position near the galactic core made it perfect for coordinating operations in the rejection zones. "They're pushing toward the Helios cluster," reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Okafor. 3 Concordat species have homeworlds there. If they fall, we lose a quarter of the Concordat's industrial capacity. Cortez studied the holographic battle map. The Devourers moved like a wave, overwhelming everything in their path. Conventional tactics were failing. The enemy adapted too quickly, learned too fast. "What's the status on Operation Dark Run?" he asked. "Refugee ships are en route. 2 million civilians from the outer colonies. They're heading to our deep, void stations." 2 million, Cortez repeated. "We've never sheltered that many aliens before. They don't have anywhere else to go, sir. We're the only ones who can hide them in places the Devourers won't follow." It was true. The Devourers avoided the rejection zones. Their ships seemed unable or unwilling to enter areas of extreme radiation or gravity. It made human territories the safest places in the galaxy right now, which was a sentence Cortez never thought he would consider. The first refugee ships arrived 6 hours later. Cortez went to the docking bay to observe. Families emerged from the vessels, carrying whatever they could save. Most had never seen a human before. Many looked terrified, not just of the Devourers, but of the neutron star pulsing outside. An elderly Vryn woman approached him, her blue skin marked with age patterns. "Is it true this place has radiation that can kill in seconds?" "Yes," Cortez replied honestly. "But we've been living here for 90 years. We know how to stay safe. You'll be fine. And well, one. And one. And one." "Why would you help us?" she asked. "Your people were treated poorly when you joined the Concordat. We gave you the places we thought would kill you." Cortez smiled sadly. "Because you need help. That's reason enough." The woman's eyes filled with tears. She touched his hand gently. "Thank you." Over the next weeks, human colonies across the rejection zones filled with refugees. Families who had lost everything found shelter in places they had been taught to fear. And slowly, they began to understand. The humans were not just surviving in these places. They had made them home. Meanwhile, the war continued. Cortez assembled a task force of volunteers from multiple species. The mission was simple in concept, suicidal in execution. They would strike at the Devourers from inside the galactic core itself, using the radiation and chaos as cover. "This is insane," said Commander Zeleth, now working directly with human forces. "The core has radiation levels that will kill us all, not if we're fast," replied Captain Yamada, daughter of the admiral who had led the first demonstration voyage. "We've mapped safe paths through the core, windows of lower radiation. We can get in, hit them, and get out before the exposure kills us. And if you're wrong, then we die quickly instead of slowly. Better than waiting for the Devourers to reach our homes." The task force consisted of 60 ships, 20 human vessels, and 40 Concordat ships whose crews had volunteered. They spent 2 weeks training together, learning to trust each other, learning to move through environments that defied their instincts. A young Prax pilot named Kessa became friends with her human counterpart, a man named Diego. They shared meals between training sessions, swapping stories about their homeworlds. "I always thought humans were crazy," Kessa admitted. "My grandfather was Morin. He visited your colonies years ago and came back changed. He said you were either the future or the end of the Concordat. Which do you think we are?" Diego asked. "Both, maybe. You don't follow the rules we've lived by for thousands of years. You go places we won't go. You try things we won't try. It's terrifying. But watching you train, seeing how you adapt, I think maybe we needed someone to break the rules. The attack launched on a moonless night, though that meant nothing in space. The task force plunged into the galactic core, where million-year-old stars crowded together and radiation blazed like fire. The Devourer fleet was positioned at the edge of the core, using it as an anchor for their advance. They never expected an attack from within the chaos itself. Yamada's ship led the charge. They emerged from a radiation storm directly behind the enemy fleet. Weapons fired at point-blank range. 3 Devourer ships exploded before they could react. The battle lasted 18 minutes. The task force used every trick humans had learned from living in hostile space. They ducked behind pulsars, using the radiation bursts as shields. They navigated through gravity wells that bent space-time itself. They coordinated attacks during solar flares that blinded enemy sensors. The Concordat pilots followed human leads, trusting them even when every instinct screamed to flee. Kessa found herself laughing as she followed Diego through a maneuver that should have torn her ship apart, but somehow didn't. They destroyed 47 Devourer ships and crippled a dozen more. The enemy fleet retreated in confusion. For the first time, the Devourers had been hurt badly, but victory came with a cost. 14 ships didn't make it out. Their crews took too much radiation or got caught in gravity wells. Diego's ship was one of them. Kessa saw it happen, saw him sacrifice himself to save her squadron by drawing enemy fire. When the survivors returned to Racton 4, they were greeted as heroes. But Yamada stood in the memorial garden, adding 14 new names to the wall. The list was growing. Zalith found her there. "Your people fight with no fear of death. We fear it," Yamada said quietly. "We just don't let fear stop us. The tide is turning. Your attack broke their momentum. Other human-led strikes are launching across the front. The Concordat sees now what your species truly is." "And what's that?" "Warriors. Not because you love war, but because you refuse to surrender. You live in places that should kill you. You fight battles that should be impossible. You survive when you should die." Zalith paused. "The Concordat has been comfortable for too long. We forgot what it takes to truly fight for survival. You're teaching us again." Across the galaxy, mixed human-alien units were forming. Concordat soldiers trained in human colonies, learning to fight in environments they had always avoided. They learned to embrace discomfort, to push past fear, to adapt instead of retreating. The Vryn woman Cortez had met now volunteered at the colony hospital, caring for wounded soldiers. Her grandson enlisted in a human-led unit. The refugees were not just sheltering in human space anymore. They were joining the fight. The Devourers continued to advance. But slowly now. Every system they took cost them. Every battle was harder. The Concordat was learning to fight like humans, and the enemy was learning to fear what that meant. In the command center, Cortez received reports of another victory. A mixed task force had used a human tactic, hiding in a stellar nursery and ambushing a Devourer supply line. The enemy was adapting, but so was the Concordat. "We're not winning yet," Okafor said, reading the strategic reports. "No," Cortez agreed. "But we're not losing anymore. And sometimes, that's enough to start." The war ended on a cold morning. Though morning meant little in the void of space, the last Devourer fleet retreated into dark space, broken and defeated. They had come to consume a galaxy and found instead a resistance they could not break. Ambassador Chen, now 130 years old thanks to advanced medical technology, sat in the Concordat Council chamber as the peace declaration was signed. Around her, delegates from 200 species celebrated. But Chen was quiet, thinking about the cost. 4 billion lives lost across the galaxy, 12 species extinct, hundreds of worlds damaged or destroyed. Humanity had lost 300,000 people, including her grandson who died defending a Sith colony world. But they had won. The Concordat owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid, Thren announced, its voice heavy with age. The old director had led them through the entire war. You opened your impossible homes to our refugees. You taught us to fight in ways we had forgotten. You showed us that the places we feared could become our greatest strengths. We did what anyone would do, Chen said simply. We helped. No, Thren replied. Most species would not have done what you did. Most would have closed their borders and protected themselves. You opened yours and saved millions. A young human officer named Sarah Torres stood to speak. She was Marcus's daughter, born in the radiation shelters of Racton 4. We have a proposal for the Council. The rejection zones, as you call them, are not what you think. We've been studying them for 150 years now. We've found something. A holographic display activated, showing images of ancient ruins scattered across hostile worlds. Structures built near black holes. Stations orbiting neutron stars. Cities in the galactic core. We're not the first to live in these places, Sarah continued. Long before the Concordat existed, other species made homes here. They thrived in the extremes. We've found evidence of at least 7 extinct civilizations that did what we're doing now. The chamber erupted in shocked discussion. This contradicted everything they thought they knew about galactic history. Why did they die out? Asked Morin, the Prax delegate, who had witnessed humanity's rise from the beginning. We don't know yet. But we found their records, their technology, their history. They didn't die from the environments. They died from something else. Possibly the same kind of threat the Devourers represented. Sarah paused. The point is, the comfortable galaxy you've all lived in, that might be the anomaly. Life doesn't just survive in nice places. It thrives everywhere it can, if it's willing to adapt. A Vryn scientist stood up, her grandson beside her in a Concordat military uniform. Are you suggesting we expand into these zones? Colonize the places we've always avoided? Thank you for watching. And for mending? That's for watching. And the 19U. And then he won. And for watching. We're suggesting you stop avoiding them, Sarah replied. Humanity will share everything we've learned. Our technology, our techniques, our maps. These regions aren't death zones. They're just frontiers. Hard frontiers. Yes. But so was Earth once. Over the next months, the proposal was debated and refined. Finally, the Concordat launched the Frontier Initiative. Dozens of species began establishing colonies in regions they had abandoned millennia ago. Human advisors helped them adapt, taught them the tricks humanity had learned through trial and error. Kessa, the Prax pilot who had fought beside Diego, led one of the first Prax expeditions to a world near a black hole. She named the colony Diego's Stand, in honor of her fallen friend. Within 5 years, 50,000 Prax lived there, mining exotic matter and studying gravitational physics in ways that were impossible anywhere else. The Vryn woman who had asked Cortez about radiation now lived on Racton 4 permanently. Her family had grown to include human in-laws. Her great-grandchildren played with human children in the radiation shelters, not even thinking about the neutron star pulsing outside. The galaxy was changing. Species that had been comfortable for thousands of years were rediscovering the frontier spirit. They were learning to push boundaries, to try impossible things, to survive where survival seemed unlikely. But humanity was not done expanding. Chen stood on the observation deck of the colony ship Endeavour, one of the largest vessels ever built. Behind her, 50,000 humans waited in cryosleep. Before her, the stars of the Magellanic Clouds glowed, 2 small galaxies orbiting the Milky Way. It's a one-way trip, said the ship's captain, a young woman named Liu. 37 years at maximum speed. By the time we arrive, everyone we know will be old or dead. I know, Chen replied. But someone has to go first. Someone always has to take the first step into the unknown. The Concordat thinks we're crazy. The Magellanic Clouds are completely unexplored. Anything could be there. Muncorded. 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 Anything could be there. Chen smiled. They said that about the rejection zones, too. They said that about deep space, about the galactic core, about every place we've gone. And we survived all of it. What if we find more hostiles, more devourers? Then we'll figure it out. That's what humans do. We figure it out. The Endeavour launched on a spring day, watched by billions across the Concordat. It was not just a human achievement. 3 other species had sent colony ships of their own, inspired by humanity's example. The Prax, the Vryn, even the cautious Sith. All of them heading to the Magellanic Clouds, ready to build new homes in the unknown. On Racton 4, Marcus Torres stood in the memorial garden with his daughter Sarah. The wall had been expanded many times, now holding tens of thousands of names. Each one, a person who had died so others could live in impossible places. Do you think we did the right thing? Marcus asked. Leading the galaxy into these dangerous regions? Sarah thought about it. Grandfather used to say that the galaxy gave us scraps because they thought the scraps would kill us. But we turned those scraps into something valuable. We proved that comfort isn't the same as progress. Safety isn't the same as strength. The Concordat was comfortable for 8,000 years. Then the Devourers came, and comfort wasn't enough. Right. They needed people who knew how to survive in the hard places, people who didn't give up when things got difficult. Sarah looked up at the neutron star, its pulses as regular as a heartbeat. We taught them that the universe doesn't care about our comfort, it cares about our ability to adapt. And now everyone's heading to the frontiers. Not everyone. Lots of species still prefer their comfortable worlds. And that's fine. But the ones who want more, who want to explore and push boundaries, they know it's possible now. We showed them. Marcus smiled. Your great-great-grandmother would be proud. Ambassador Chen took the worst deal in galactic history and turned it into the best thing that ever happened to humanity. Across the galaxy, in 1,000 harsh environments, life continued. Humans and aliens working together, building communities in places that should have been empty, learning from each other, growing stronger through shared struggle. A young Prax child on Diego's stand asked her mother, "Why did no one live here before?" The mother, who had learned from human teachers, replied, "Because they were afraid. They looked at this place and saw only danger." What do we see? We see home. We see possibility. We see a future. The mother looked out at the black hole's event horizon. Beautiful and terrible. We see what the humans taught us to see. That the hardest places can become the most important places. That survival isn't about avoiding danger. It's about learning to thrive despite it. On the Endeavour, racing toward the Magellanic Clouds, Chen dreamed in cryosleep. She dreamed of Earth, the world where humanity learned to survive ice ages and droughts. She dreamed of Racton 4, where they learned to survive neutron stars. She dreamed of all the impossible places humans had claimed. And she dreamed of the future, when the galaxy would look at the empty spaces between stars, the hostile corners of the universe, and see not death zones, but opportunities, frontiers waiting for those brave enough to try. The aliens had claimed the galaxy, dividing up the comfortable places and leaving the scraps. But humanity had claimed something more valuable. They had claimed the impossible. And in doing so, they had changed what the galaxy believed was possible. That was humanity's gift. Not technology or weapons or wealth, but the simple, stubborn belief that anywhere could be home if you were willing to work for it. That any challenge could be overcome if you refused to give up. That the universe was not a thing to be feared, but a frontier to be explored. The galaxy had learned, and it would never be the same.